So at METC 2015, I was part of the Cool Tool Duel, and I only had 6 minutes to show how to use Autocrat. So if you're watching this video and you were in the session, that was probably pretty quick. If you didn't make the session but you still wanted to kind of see how to use Autocrat with scoring guides, I'm going to go ahead and do a demonstration here and probably take a little bit more than 6 minutes so that we don't move at quite as fast of a pace. So let's go ahead and get started. So what this is really going to be all about is you're going to take your Google form, use it as a way to grade a scoring guide with a scoring guide, and then we're going to show you how to automate that process so you can take the results for those student grades and bring them into Autocrat and have it ship it out either as an email, as a PDF, or a Google Doc. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I advise everyone to do is you have to get your form created. Now, one of the things you can do to speed this process up, especially if you're going to do this throughout the entire year, is you want to go ahead and actually create just the basis of your form or the beginning, and do this for each class that you teach. So what this will entail is go ahead and make a form with the name. So I've just kind of put some fictitious names on here so that I'm not using real students. If you do have a little bit leery kind of thing about putting student names out on the Google Drive, you can do what I did and just use their first name and last initial. Then I go ahead, this is the optional part. If your students have email, go ahead and also list their email addresses, and if you keep this in the same order as your list above, that'll make it easier for you. And really that's all that you would go ahead and do. You have this master list ready, and then when you're ready to actually create your scoring guide, instead of just adding a question here, you're going to go to File and Make a Copy. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to use this beginning part over and over again. So I've already gone ahead and done that step, so let me go ahead and open that up. So here is the same Google form, but now I've added a grid question for my actual scoring, and then I've gone ahead and I've added some paragraph text questions so that I can add any comments on each section. I could, if I want to, add a column just for an overall comment, but I figure if I'm leaving comments on each strand that's being scored or each objective, that's probably good enough. So we have this, and so then you're going to use this form to go ahead and record those student scores. One thing I advise so that you can be mobile is that you put a copy of this on your phone. And if you're not sure how to do that, we have a link kind of going at the bottom of the screen that will link to another YouTube video to show you how to do that process. Alright, so you've gone ahead and you've done your form, and that is obviously part of using Autocrat. The second part is you actually need to create the template that data is going to go into. So what Autocrat does is it takes the data from your spreadsheet and it's going to dump it into certain marked areas on this Google Doc. The areas that it will dump data into are shown right here, so you can see there with the double caret, and I just put some sort of label or tag inside of there. So I've gone ahead, I've got my full scoring guide here. I have a spot where the student name is going to populate that area, and then I've got areas down below here where we can go ahead and put the content score, the content comments, same thing for delivery, presentation, and I've added something for overall score, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The key when you're doing this is the areas where you want the data to fill, you have to use these double carets. That's how the program Autocrat knows where to dump that data. So when this is all finished, students are going to get a personalized copy of this. They have the full scoring guide, but then they're going to see how they did on each part. So you have to have that ready beforehand as well. Now that those two components are ready, we are ready to go into the spreadsheet because that contains all of our data, and this is where you are going to run the Autocrat add-on. So I've just done a couple so that we have a couple samples of what this would look like. So here are all of the scores. Here are all of the comments. So what I'm going to do though is I want a spot where I can go ahead and add the overall score. So I'm going to add a column here called overall. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come use the sum function, and I'm going to have it add my 3 columns that are going to go ahead and have my number data in there. Once I've done that once, I can then come to my bottom right hand corner. I can drag this down. I can drag down for all of my entries. So let's drag it down for 2, and it's going to sum up the next row and the next row and the next row. So I've got all this on here. Now I'm ready to use my Autocrat add-on. If you did not already have that installed, you would need to go to Get Add-ons and find Autocrat and install that. But once you have it on there, it'll always be in your list, and you're going to click Launch. With our Autocrat tab or pane now open on the side, I'm going to go ahead and click on New Merge Job, and that's going to get this process started. The first thing Autocrat would like is it wants to know where your template is. So if you've already used a template before, it would show up down below, but if you had not, you could go ahead and click Drive, and now we're going to go search for that template. So I like to use this searching feature here, so I know I have Scoring Guide in the title. So the one I made here is Copy of Scoring Guide, because I just made a copy of something I had already completed before. So I'm going to go ahead and say Select. This is going to apply this template to be used in Autocrat. I then have to give this a name, so I'm just going to call this Cool Tool Demo. And I'm going to go ahead and say Set. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to line up the tags on our Google Doc template with the columns from our spreadsheet. Now, one nice thing it'll do, if they're the same name, it'll go ahead and match those up. So I want the name tag to match the name column. But you can see here it shows timestamp for everything. So I'm going to go ahead, I want this to be content. This one right here is going to be comments on content. So I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to map these out so that I get the correct column feeding into the correct tag on the Google Doc that is my template. So I'm going to go ahead here, and then last, I'm going to go ahead and put that overall score in right there. Once I've got those mapped out, and again, this is really important so that you get things in the right spot, I'll go ahead and click Save. Now this next part here, there are some things you can do with it that are optional, but there are some things that are not optional. So let's start with the non-negotiables here. The first one is you want to give these files a naming convention. So here's the nice thing you can do. There are these little values up on the top that you can use to customize the name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to copy it. It is my $ name, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here. And then I'm just going to put assignment. ... whatever it would be called. So here's what this is going to do. It's going to pull the data from the name column and use that in the naming convention. So in this case, this would be Bob Deneau assignment. It would be Maria assignment, and on and on. So this makes every student have a file with a different name. It also puts their name on it, which is easy to manage for you. The next, you can come through and decide, are you going to create a Google Doc or are you going to create a PDF? I'm going to go ahead and create a PDF. Now, this next part is optional, and this is if you want to email this to the students. So if you're an elementary classroom and you don't have email, or if you're a secondary classroom and your district doesn't have email for kids, you're not going to be able to use this part. But if you have student email, that's the reason why we entered that student email in the form before. You can go ahead and say email this, and so what you're going to do is you're just going to take the value up here, the email address, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in there. And this is where it's going to pull that email address so that every student only gets their own, in this case, their own PDF sent to them. They don't get the entire class. So subject, I'm going to say, this one is going to be called Scoring Guide Feedback. And then I can go ahead and put my message here. So, ... And then I can include this merged. I like to do this as a PDF, just so it's nice and simple. They've got it, they can open it whenever, they don't have to necessarily be in their drive or anything like that. So at this point, I can be all finished. I can go to the advanced setting area. There are some things where you can have this run when a form is submitted. This would be fine except for in the example I'm using. I added that presentation area, and I want to make sure that I might want to look everything over. I might just want to double check it, but if you're like, I just want Autocrat to run as soon as I hit submit, it can do that by checking this. Okay, so that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Sometimes I don't want students to know I only grade 5 of them today. I'm grading 5 more tomorrow. Maybe I'll just do this. I'll send them all out at one time. Those are all things to consider. But you don't have to mess with that if you do not want to. So when you're all finished, we'll go ahead and click Save. So what you're seeing right here, we have some new columns created in our spreadsheet. These will just be links to the new documents that we're creating. So to make this run and make this happen, we're going to click on Cool Tool Duel, and I'm going to go ahead and say Run Merge. As the merge is running, it will show you kind of how far it is along in the process and whether it had to skip any because there was insufficient data or just something didn't work right. So our Autocrat merge is complete. We have links to the newly created documents, but the nice thing that Autocrat does for you is it will also create a folder for those merged documents. So if I go into the Cool Tool demo and I open this up, I now have that PDF. So when I look at the PDF here, you can see it went ahead and put my name in there. It put in the content scores, the comments, the delivery options. It put all of those things in there. And so now here's the cool thing. I'm going to go into my email and show you what this will look like from the student perspective if you use the email option. Alright, so I'm in my email here. I see I have an email called Scoring Guide Feedback. When I open that email up, I see I have an attachment, so I can open that in Drive or just go ahead and download it. I'm going to go ahead and download it here. So when I open up my PDF, here is all of my results. Here's all the feedback I need, and as a teacher, all I had to do was enter it and run Autocrat, and that's it. And now every student has this. It's an easy way for you to get that feedback back to your students. That's Autocrat. Hope you enjoy using this tool.